So, could you see the Pistons making a bigger move this summer if they make a playoff push this season?
Um, I could. I don't know. Like I'm still kind of getting a feel for
Yeah.
like his agent in the front office and everything. So I'm not sure what his style is in terms of like pushing the chips all in and everything. But um, I would assume just kind of seeing how it went with the Kings the first year before they made the DeMar trade the second year, that if you have a young core that plays really well this season that can get them to the playoffs, whether that be Cade, Jaden, Isaiah, Duran, and Asar, whatever that core is, I think they would probably want to give them time to just get another year, again, considering that they're all in their early 20s. And
Hmm.
that being said, though, I'm sure if there's like some massive deal that could make the team much better, I think not many people would be um Cade would be like the one who you are never trading essentially, but outside of
Yeah.
that, depending on what you could get, I don't know how they would view it. But my first like gut reaction would be if you get to the playoffs this year, personally, I would, if I were in that situation, I'd want to kind of run it back and see how the players grow, given that they are 22, 23.
Yeah, it's
And then
funny.
like possibly if you could like add complementary pieces without having to break up any of that core, then something like that maybe.
Yeah, this team reminds me a lot of the 2015-16 team.
Mm,
Um, when Tobias was actually on that team under Stan Van Gundy, they didn't really have a guy that averaged 30. They had a bunch of guys that could score points in bunches.
mhm.
I think the one name that a lot of Pistons fans gravitate towards is Brandon Ingram. Um, Here's my thing. I think if Trajan wanted Brandon Ingram, he probably would have traded for him this summer. That's just my opinion on it. I
Mhm.
mean, he was with them for several years in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, if you follow the agency that he just left, he
Right.
was he was at Excel. So was Cade Cunningham.
Mhm.
They're not, he's no longer at Excel. He's with Clutch Sports. You kind of connect the dots.
Right.
Maybe he ends up in LA. Maybe Brown wants him back. You never know. Like
Yeah.
I don't, because he wants to get paid, obviously. And the Pelicans were not willing to, go into the second apron to, extend him. Obviously, they would have extended him if that was the case. But I think he's a name that a lot of Pistons fans gravitate towards. I've even seen Miles Turner because he's going to be a free agent this summer. I mean, I think that's kind of a lower tier guy, a stretch five. And
Mhm.
I think the biggest thing, what are you going to do with Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren? I think those are the conversations that Pistons fans are kind of like skipping past because they're both extension eligible at the end of the season. Like,
Mhm.
if you want to extend them, like, are you going to give Jaden Ivey $100 million for a contract
Yeah.
extension? Because I don't I like Jaden Ivey, I like Jalen Duren. They're not going to give them a super max like they gave Cade Cunningham. I just don't see it that way. I
Yeah.
think that they could get like $100 million though, or $80 million. I think those are conversations that Pistons fans should maybe have versus like what big star we could get because they have to make decisions this summer. Like, what are they going to do long term? They could say we're not going to extend you and just run it back and kind of evaluate you guys one more year and just give you a contract the following summer.
Mhm. Yeah, I think to the Brandon Ingram point, it's tough because he's really talented, but kind of like in the same class that I thought of Lonzo in with just like injuries, not occasionally, but injuries kind of more often than most players. Um, I think he's definitely someone who's like really ball dominant in most situations, but he is a bucket, like you said. And I've seen it's funny because the same thing kind of happened in Sac. Like anytime his name came up in trade, Sac fan or Kings fans would be like, "How would we feel about him?" And so his name's always involved. It feels, but I think that could be good. But I would be more interested in what the Pistons would have to give away to get him. And I would also definitely, as you mentioned, Trajan being with him in New Orleans, like I would trust what he feels and what he's seen.
I mean, not just Trajan. I mean, like Michael Blackstone, Fred Vincent. Like
Mhm.
you brought in a lot of guys from New Orleans, so they got a pretty good understanding of like what he is, what he's capable of. Not to say that I don't think that the Pistons do need a secondary scorer next to Cade. I think that is needed. I know someone had mentioned Zach LaVine's name, which that contract is really, really big. And I
Yeah,
know the Pistons were really, really close last year to getting him. And if you kind of like some Pistons fans think that he kind of just got surgery and said, I don't want to go to Detroit. I don't know that to be true or not. But I mean, kind of just scrolling on Twitter, be like, Pistons are close. And they're like, no, she's an ending surgery. He's not
yeah,
going, he's staying in Chicago. But I think Levine is way too expensive for them to even entertain it.
yeah. He's I guess that was the main reason there wasn't like much of a market for him this past summer, and I don't think there's any question amongst anyone in the league. I would hope that he can still play. Like we
Yeah.
saw what he did here a couple weeks ago in the fourth alone. So I think
Yeah.
he's really talented, but again, the contract. Again, he is going to be a scorer, but it's like what we don't know necessarily what he's bringing on the defensive end too much. So. Yeah, this is why I am and not in anyone's front office. I'm
Yeah.
here. So these are tough decisions, but
Oh, I know.
he's great, but I don't love that contract either.
Yeah, I mean, like hypothetically, if you traded for him, you gave Kata a max, and then you got Zach Levine. I mean, that's like $90 million committed to two players. Like the Pacers have that next year on their books with like Siakam and Halliburton.
Hmm.
And then you have I think Andrew Nebhart. He's like at 20 million. So it's just
Yeah.
like the Pacers, like if they don't make a run, like I could see them like maybe trying to retool, getting rid of some of their guys to get like cheaper contracts. That's
Hmm.
why I had mentioned Miles Turner because who knows what happens at the center spot. I still think I don't think it's set in stone,
Hmm.
but I think that would be a guy that would make a whole lot of sense, especially if you want to, have a 5-out offense, and he can
Yeah.
still protect the rim, not like he used to a
Hmm.
few years ago, but he's still, I think, a pretty serviceable big in my opinion.
Yeah, he looked good. He was looking pretty good, I would say, in Indiana a couple of nights ago. But yeah, I agree. He's pretty solid.